Good morning from the KTN News Center here in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. We hope that you're keeping safe. We would like to start today by wishing all the fathers and father figures out there a happy Father's Day. Now, on the broadcast this Sunday, yet another storm brewing inside the majority Jubilee party ahead of yet another parliamentary group meeting scheduled for Monday morning. It would seem that Deputy President William Ruto and his allies are preparing for any eventualities with the publicization of what is being called Jubilee Asili. With the launch of Jubilee Asili Center, are Kenyans going to see another split of a major political party? Ruto seemingly taking the fight to the so-called system, but can he put his money where his mouth is and quit the ruling party? While so much is happening around the majority Jubilee party, the minority coalition, the National Super Alliance, NASA, seems to be dying a slow, painful death. This past week, Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper Party and Isaac Ruto's Chama cha Mashinani signed a cooperation deal with Jubilee, with PAN of Kenya going back to a one-party system. Only the weakly Ford Kenya and Musalia Mudavadi's Amani National Congress seem to be left standing with the minority side. And they are not even parliamentary parties. And in international politics, it was a big win for Kenya and the Kenyatta administration as the country finally bagged the non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. What does this mean for Kenya? Tanzania is among countries which did not vote for Kenya. How will this affect relations between the two East African nations? Also this Sunday, a massive indictment on President Uhuru Kenyatta's flagship development project, the Standard Gauge Railway. The Court of Appeal has declared the deal illegal following a case filed by activist Okia Omtata and backed by the Law Society of Kenya. What now? Stay with us for the next 120 minutes for qualified analysis of the biggest political and policy issues in the Republic. This is Inside Politics. I am Ben KITILI, being joined by my panel. I have with me lawyer and political strategist Kipchumba Karori, political risk analyst Dismas Mokua, communication strategist Mark Bichache, as well as humanitarian and development activist or consultant, rather, Charutich Sei. Ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for joining us this Sunday. Always a pleasure having with me in studio, you with me in studio. All right. Let's get into it. As Deputy President William Ruto officially began plans to leave the ruling Jubilee Party for an alternative wagon to State House in 2022. This is the question puzzling Kenyans and observers alike after MPs allied to the DP officially unveiled an outfit called Jubilee Asili. Let's begin with KTN political reporter Moremi Mwangi explaining the intrigues behind the move, which has already seen two requests made with the Registrar of Political Parties to reserve the name Jubilee Asili.
Above the country's political space and dwarfing all other political parties in numbers of all elective seats. The Jubilee headquarters has lately been a beehive of activities, the party entrenching its expansion agenda. Its latest score being this cooperation agreement with the former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka-led Wiper Party. But tucked in the posh Lavington neighborhood is a political fault line after legislators allied to Deputy President William Ruto unveiled a rival political outfit dubbed Jubilee Asili and headquartered here off Riera Road. The outfit's symbol being this Jubilee Party associated logo of clasped hands soaked in yellow, a color incidentally associated with Ruto's former outfit, the United Republican Party, and a new slogan, Sote Pamoja.
Well, Jubilee Asili is a name we've come up with so that people know, first of all, that we are still in Jubilee. And the Asili name means we are in the original Jubilee, whereby the original Jubilee had a concept whereby we wanted to get away from small, tribal, personal parties, briefcase parties.
But while Ruto's allies claim they are yet to formalize any plans to turn the Jubilee Asili outfit into a potential 2022 wagon to State House, Acting Registrar of Political Parties Nderitu told KTN News that she had Friday morning received two requests for reservation of the name. This is the first legal stage to establishment of a political party. This move came on the same day Ruto met legislators, recently ejected from parliamentary committees in the latest signs of total fallout between Ruto and his boss President Uhuru Kenyatta. Among those in attendance of Ruto's Thursday night meeting at Jubilee Asili Center were former Senate Majority Leader Kipchumba Murkomen, hosted Majority Whip Susan Kihika and legislators Kimani Ichung'wah and Moses Kuria. But reacting to the move by Ruto's allies, Jubilee Vice Chair David Murathe, in a tweet dismissed the outfit as a party of thieves, liars and thugs, adding that they are trying to make economic criminals look like martyrs, summing it up, so disgusting. Some legislators from the President Kenyatta's camp now prescribing disciplinary action against their rebel colleagues.
The party prescribes the various steps that are taken against you, including withdrawal of the certificate that you are given. Because when we were nominated, we had an undertaking that we will always subscribe to the ideals of the party.
Most of the members of parliament from Jubilee, and I speak on behalf of them, do not know what is happening at the party. There was a handshake, we just had it through the media, then there was a coalition with the KANU, then there's a coalition with CCM, there's a coalition with the Wiper. We are going around picking small parties, I don't know what for.
With the Uhuru-Ruto political marriage evidently on the rocks, the likely emergence of splinter Jubilee parties is certainly not far off the cards for the Ruto camp, as realignments continue. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, in Nairobi.
Thank you, Muremi. Let me begin with you, Mark Bichachi. Now, in this country, we have seen the Forum for Restoration of Democracy, Ford Kenya and Ford Asili. We have seen the National Rainbow Coalition and NAC Kenya. We have seen KANU and New KANU. We have seen ODM and ODM Kenya. We have seen Jubilee Party and then Jubilee Asili. Now, we are trying to figure out what's happening here. What do you think is happening here, Mark?
What is happening here is Tanga Tanga has found yet another way to remain the ruling party and be the ruling opposition at the same time. Jubilee A and B just has found a new home and a new name. Now, this is not anything new because the agenda of those who have been known as Tanga Tanga has always been diametrically opposite to what the president and what the Jubilee Kieleweke side has been. So in order for them to remain relevant and also try and find a semblance of normalcy and operational capacity, they've decided to do this so that they can continue in their agenda. But what is very interesting for me is how people who vehemently disagree and speak ill of their own political party are committed to stay there. And that's really the question, Ben. Why do they want to hold on to the name Jubilee, and why do they want to hold on to the coalition, to the Jubilee party as it is? And the reason is twofold. Number one is that they can never talk with their wallets. In other words, they cannot dare exit the party because that would mean they lose their parliamentary salaries and their privileges. So that's not going to happen. So their wallet rules. And then number two, it is also because they do not have a principle by which to stand on to say they've left the Jubilee party. Because what will they say they're fighting? Uniting the country? Fighting against corruption, or any of the big four? They can't say that, so they don't have a principle to stand on.
The Deputy President would tell you that he was the main person behind the Jubilee Party, bringing those parties together. He would say that is why he does not want to quit.
Yes, but the question, Ben, would be, if Jubilee was founded on bringing parties together, why is Tanga Tanga's biggest complaint that parties have been brought together? Starting with Raila Odinga being brought in, continuing with Kalonzo Musyoka. So why is it that it was okay for other parties to join and form this grand coalition, and it is wrong for other parties to do so?
Fair question. Kipchumba, let me come to you. We have been trying to dig to find out from party insiders really what is going on here. What do we know?
I think, Ben, as far as I know, is whatever is on the public domain is that from what we have heard from Kositany and all the close allies of William Ruto is that Jubilee Asili is just a platform where Jubilee members can caucus, can coalesce and what have you. And that does not go against anything because they retain their right to assembly and their right of political association, even if they are in a political party. And what I think they are coming out to champion is the original idea of Jubilee. And that, to me, I don't don't see, they do not offend any law of the land and any political canon in the book that they should not do this.
What is this original idea?
I think the original idea is the idea of togetherness, coming together, and that's why they have a tagline, sote pamoja. I was trying to think what's the difference between tuko pamoja and sote pamoja, and somebody explained to me that tuko pamoja means two people, sote pamoja means everyone together. So, but at the end of the day, Ben, what we must ask and what we must endeavor to realize is that whereas the people pushing the Jubilee coalition kind of unity are looking at volumetrics, political volumetrics. At the end of the day, politics is not about how many parties come together. It is about the people supporting those parties coming together. To me, I don't see the political gain that you gain by bringing CCM to Jubilee. CCM, I don't know even if it's a political party, probably so-called, because it has only one member of parliament. What does it bring? And the other thing is this, the only political sense we can get from this kind of bringing parties together is the issue of if you bring Kalonzo to Jubilee, we suppose that you are bringing a huge chunk of the Ukambani region to Jubilee. But the other question is this, Ben, that it ought to be shared between Uhuru Kenyatta and his men is why are we united? Why are we bringing people to one party? Without that insight, Ben, people will get jittery because people know whatever is happening. You have seen Luhya leaders being clobbered in Western Kenya. We have seen when we are going back to the canoe of the later days.
All
so
right.
people become jittery because of that. But when we go back, I think there is one thing also, the people strategizing and thinking for Uhuru Kenyatta, Kina Murathe of this world and Kina Kanini Kega must know that Uhuru Kenyatta found William Ruto in politics. So that must in itself tell them he has been in the game for a while.
We'll
taming him in a corner might not be that easy.
We'll get into that, the pan that Kenya is going to a one-party, to become a one-party state again. We'll get into that. But before we do that, Kipchumba, many people seem to think that Jubilee Asili is a fallback plan for the DP, whether it is him who will quit the party, Jubilee Party, or if there are any attempts to remove him, then he'll have something that has a semblance of the original idea as a political party, although we know at this time that it is not registered as a political party.
Ben, trying to think that William Ruto, having been in politics for 3 decades, is not having a fallback plan, in itself lazy thinking, and it is going around common sense. The thing is this, William Ruto knows that for him to make political sense, and being the front runner in the race, he must be there. And it is in his good interest to make sure that he has a political insurance. The other thing is this, going whatever we are currently, he must by now be having several options. If he doesn't have in his book between plan A to 12, he will have failed the politician he is.
All right. Cherotich, what is your initial reaction to this?
Thank you and good morning and happy Father's Day to my fellow panelists. Even if you're not fathers, you do take care of other children and nephews.
Thank you, Chero.
So happy Father's Day to all of you and all the fathers out there. Well, one of the things I would like to say is alliances exist for a reason. And when the alliances have served their purpose, then they fall apart. The Jubilee Alliance, where you had the TNA and URP coming together, where you had the ICC brothers come together and gloriously ride into victory and plunder the country for the next 8 years, it has served its purpose. And as I said a few weeks ago, it's a false dichotomy to imagine that Jubilee, now this Jubilee Asili and Jubilee Kieleweke and so on and so forth are different things. In fact, if I speak to this issue from Wanjiko's perspective, what is it that Jubilee Asili will be bringing to the table that they haven't already brought to the table as legislators through inaction? And if you combine them with the Kieleweke group, what have they done for the Republic of Kenya in the past 8 years that they have been in power? And this is why I call it a false dichotomy. But a few weeks ago, Ben, I said that if you push the Tanga team up against the wall. And this was just immediately after the removal of Murkomen and Kihika. As soon as you push them up against a wall and they begin to see they have nothing left to do but to fight, they will come out in a no-holds-barred, mutually assured destruction. And you know what I say? Go for it. My deepest desire is for the implosion of Jubilee, well, the implosion of NASA as well, because ultimately, as voters, as citizenry, we are being treated to the same merry-go-round of criminals and crooks and people who ultimately are not interested in the development of the citizens. So I look at it and say we shall now spend the next number of weeks analyzing who is what, the colors behind the new logos, where Kalonzo is, how NASA is faring. But we know that the second hands were shaken a couple of years ago, that was the end of all alliances as we understood them. So I will tell Jubilee Asili, go for it, go for bust, please fight hard, fight Kieleweke hard, and Kieleweke, please fight by all means Tanga hard so that we can watch you. But the tragedy is that even as we watch as the citizens, we are the grass being trampled underfoot. And I will never tire of saying so on this program, that ultimately this has nothing to do with us. And as Kenyans, we have gotten into the habit of reacting to what the political elite, the dynasties, the hustlers, so long as they're up there, they're the elite. They do not care about Wanjiku. We have grown accustomed to reacting to them. We as Kenyans have ceased to have a vision that transcends beyond the petty and macro and micro politics that we see in political parties today. Right. We are waiting to be told it is time to go the Kieleweke route, or it's time to go the Asili route, or it's time as Wakambas to follow Kalonzo as he migrates back into Jubilee, or it's time to watch Ruto and Chama cha Mashinani, or it's time to see what ODM is doing, or it's time to see what ANC Ford Kenya. We are just being played with as the citizenry. And until the day we make a decision as voters to act and not react, the minute we decide that we want to shape our agenda and not let the political elite do it for us, maybe we will begin to be on the path to some kind of change that has benefits for our children and grandchildren.
So all alliances were nullified when the handshake happened. That is what Chero says. Dismas, talk to us about this.
Well, you know, by coming up with this Jubilee Asili, essentially what the deputy president is doing to his boss is flipping the bird and telling him that I've had too much fights from this political party called Jubilee. I will not take it anymore. I doubt whether he will run with a political party called Jubilee Asili, but this one is just a very good strategy to provoke the president so that he can win favor from a number of his voters. And it's a confirmation, and this we've said times above number, that we don't have political parties in Kenya. Yes. We merely have special purpose vehicles. And when you look at Jubilee and you know, TNA and URP, it was those bodies were formed for two purposes. One, to manage ICC, which they did with a lot of success, and another one to secure power, which they've secured power on two occasions. So the glue which was holding together President Kenyatta and his deputy has now melted. And each party is trying to ask themselves, what am I supposed to be doing for the next 2 years? President Kenyatta wants to secure his legacy, while his deputy is looking at 2022. And those two ideas cannot exist in the same room. Now, times above number, President Kenyatta has told his deputy, please hold on into your horses, let's secure my legacy, and in 2022, I'll give you unlimited support. I'll give you a blank check. I'll campaign for you. I'll ensure you win your seats. You may recall during the campaigns we were being told, kumi yangu na kumi ya ndugu yangu. So that was initially the game plan. Right. But the deputy president seems to have a very unique appetite for power in 2022 that he cannot keep, he cannot keep calm for the next 2 years. And if you are President Kenyatta, you would react in the same manner, that you are going to look for political players who are going to be dancing to your drum beat. That are, if you tell them to jump, they don't ask you why. They'll be asking you how high. But right now, when the president tells the deputy to jump, the deputy will asking him why. I mean, are my interests covered in your instructions? And when you have these two powerful politicians in the same boma, then you will expect catchfights every single day. Now, in Jubilee, you have now it's very clear, you have Jubilee in government, which is led by President Kenyatta, and he has been joined by his brothers and cousins, and then you have the Jubilee in opposition. If the deputy president was very genuine about the interest of Mura, Wanjiko, and Chebet, he should do the most honorable thing that politicians do. When you're unhappy with your boss, you get a nice pen, you do a resignation letter, and you say it was nice doing business. And we've got a president in Kenya. When Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was unhappy with President Jomo Kenyatta, he said that his conscience will not allow him to stay in office, keep on enjoying taxpayers' money, and he's doing nothing, and he doesn't have a good conversation with his boss. So he decided to resign. So there's a very valid expectation that the deputy president today, instead of causing fires every single day, causing challenges, and generally speaking, being a nightmare for the president, he should find it with humility to resign, so that if he wants to run with Jubilee Asili or is going to form another political party, then he can work on it. Because right now, the president wants to serve Kenyans, or he has made us believe that he wants to serve Kenyans, and his only challenge is the deputy president. So if the deputy president steps aside, then if for the next 2 years we don't see any movement in the socioeconomic space, then now we'll squarely blame it on President Kenyatta and his brother Raila Odinga. But if the deputy president is in the same room, then we'll say these three people are sharing liability. But at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, for how long are we going to sit back and be used as special purpose vehicles for these top-heavy politicians? Because you can see all these catfights, Jubilee in government, Jubilee in opposition, when the fight has come to an end, the Kenyan shilling doesn't become stronger, our GDP doesn't grow. It's about serving the selfish interest of these politicians.
Again, Dismas, who is to blame for the lack of proper political parties? Isn't it the same Kenyans?
Well, in large part, we blame ourselves because for some reason we have adopted the voodoo logic that as we approach the elections, we become irrational, we become emotional, and then we are handcuffed. We are blackmailed by our tribal leaders. We are made to believe that if you come from central Kenya and you do not vote for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, then you're not going to have supper the following day. If you come from Luo-Nyanza, you're made to believe that if you don't vote for Raila Odinga, if you go to the lake, you're not going to get any fish. We lie to ourselves that our selfish interests have been aligned by these politicians. But as soon as we cast our ballots, a few hours later, we go into buyer's remorse. So for me, I think the Kenyan voter, number one, has to blame himself. But also we have the little matter of IBC that we are not sure about the numbers they keep on giving us. But at the end of the day, if you are in a leadership position, you've got these unique resources, you're not supposed to be running based on tribalism. You're supposed to be looking at Kenya as a nation so that you drive our national and public interest. But at the end of the day, the person who bears the biggest liability is the voter who becomes victim of tribal politics, emotional politics, irrational politics, and voodoo politics.
Do you agree, Kipchumba?
I have a different opinion of whatever Dismas is talking about, because at the end of the day, you have to realize that when we discuss about politics, and that is why we have set in our constitution that the next election will be in the second Tuesday of the August, the 5th, or August of the 5th year after the general election. So, whereas we have a nation to run, we cannot sit and say that politics will always make the reason why this economy cannot move forward. You have to ask yourself this, Ben. Between 2013 and 2017, we had all manner of things in this country. There was demonstrations, there were Machozi Monday, IBC must go, and all manner of things. But within that time, the Uhuru government built a railway, there was enhanced electricity fingerprints in the country. All this happened, whereas this was happening. What we need, Ben, is a leadership with a clear mindset, a leadership that knows what it wants. And once we have those people in power who have a clear mindset of where they want to take the country, it will not be that so-and-so is doing politics here and there. The other question you want to ask yourself is this: what is this so huge that William Ruto is holding this government from performing according to Dismas? Because when he says this could have been done but the deputy is not there, Is in the cabinet sitting? It is sitting. The budget has been read. Everything is happening. What is this? You know, when we tell Kenyans, we just give Kenyans big principles. We need to break down these principalities for Kenyans so that they understand what is not happening. We do not have any kind of political turmoil in this country. The deputy president has always appeared to say, I support the president, and the president has not held a press conference to tell us, I have a problem with my deputy. That will have helped us make this problem move forward.
Anybody who knows that the deputy president does so at their own peril. The deputy president is so powerful, you can't do anything in Kenya while ignoring. Now, you are going to have elections in the US in November, and President Trump only launched this campaign this morning. In the UK, which is a very mature democracy, they have their campaigns on an average for only 3 weeks during the election time. There is no way an economy like Kenya will grow if you're going to be in campaign mode for 5 years. And we know that Kenyans are so serious political animals.
We'll get back to this. We have to take a quick commercial break right now here on Inside Politics. We'll talk about something political pundits are making fun of, saying Kenya is going back to become a one-party state again. We'll talk about what is being called the death of the National Super Alliance, NASA, following working relationship with Jubilee, between ODM and Jubilee, and this past week between Wiper Party and CCM and Jubilee. So what's happening? Is NASA dying a slow, painful death? We'll talk about that when we come back. Meanwhile, how about this for Siasa File? Take a look.
Wakome kuleta mambo ya propaganda. Propaganda za ajabu. Ati Kalonzo Musyoka anaweza kuzungumziwa usiku, aende akaingie kwa Jubilee, ati Kaluki Ngilu atolewe, Kalonzo Musyoka ingie pale. I would rather die than compromise my conscience.